Do you wish you could craft more and with less stress? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. Today I want to talk about habits that I have adopted that allow me to get crafty more often. I, for a period of time, was really struggling to get in the craft room. I had some particular hang-ups that made it difficult and life circumstances and that kind of thing. And so I picked up some habits that I think have helped me tremendously to craft more often, and I wanted to share them with you. I think you'll also probably have your own ideas, and I'd like to hear things that make crafting just a little bit easier, faster, etc. My first one, I think a lot of people do. I've heard many people recommend it, but that is to make a bunch of card bases at one time. Also, some people have, they cut a bunch of cardstock at one time as well. I think that's a great one. So I like to make my own A2 size cards. I have a little video about it, but basically you cut an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper in half, and then you score that in half again, fold them up, and you can turn a stack of cardstock into cards so that when you're ready to craft, you don't have to do that step as well. Of course, if you prefer a different size of card, it might be a little bit trickier because it's hard. You won't be able to necessarily make them without creating scraps of cardstock. So you may just want to purchase card bases, and I think that's a perfectly valid strategy too for removing that block. Next habit I picked up was to buy coordinating embellishments to go with paper pads. I found in the past that I felt like there was a lot of pressure to make my own embellishments. I love Copic coloring. I don't always want to do it though. So I have a lot of stamps, and I felt like, oh, I should use my stamps. I shouldn't be buying these pre-made embellishments. And I also felt guilty because often I would not use every single embellishment in the pack or every single piece of paper in the pack. Now I've gotten ways to use more paper, and I'll talk about that. But for instance, this paper pad recently was available as a freebie from scrapbook.com. They have a lot of freebies. Scrapbook.com is one of my favorite places to shop, just because they have a really wide selection. And while they don't have free shipping very often, sometimes I feel like those freebies kind of offset some of that cost. But anyway, buying these embellishments means I don't have to feel like, oh, if I want to sit down and make a card, I also am committing to coloring and making my own embellishments. So I have these ready to go. I still will need sentiments with them, and I will sometimes also pick up like pre-printed sentiments and pair those as well for those times where I don't want to have to cut out a banner or something like that. This next one is certainly not going to surprise any of my regular viewers, but my paper busting templates. This is what brought me back to crafting. I was really struggling because I loved pattern paper, and I would use it regularly, and I would use up whole pads of it, except for I always had these little scraps at the end. And also I felt like it was creatively taxing to keep figuring out how to use those smaller and smaller bits that were left from a piece of paper. And so I started thinking about ways that I could use up a piece of 6x6 is where I started because that's my personal favorite, but 6x6, 6x8, 12x12, like how could I cut it up in such a way that I could then reassemble it into cards with no pattern paper scraps. And this was life-changing for me. I've said before that my most important tool in my craft room is my sketch binder. And I actually have 3 of them now. They're 3 1-inch binders because I have so many, and they're thicker because I do put them in plastic, but I use them a lot, so I don't want the papers to tear over time. So yeah, these are all my 6x6 for A2 size cards, but I also have 6x6 for slimline and 6x8 for A2 slimline, 5x7. I have 12x12 for all kinds of sizes of cards, etc. And just that challenge really helped to inspire me, but also when I'm ready to craft, I don't have to think about it. I just can pull one of these templates out and say, okay, I really want to use that 6x8 pattern paper I just got, and go to my templates and just pick which kind of card best suits me that day. And all of these are available for free at jesscrafts.com. You will have to sometimes enter your email or things like that, but I do strive to make sure these are available to others because it was so important to me as a way of getting me back into crafting and simplifying the process. This next one, I guess, could be more of like an anti-habit because it's something that I don't do, I stopped doing, and that is limiting the new techniques and products that I expose myself to. I think there are a lot of fun ways out there to use like, you know, innovative craft products and all that. And I am not knocking that. I'm not knocking anyone who likes to, like, I like to work with pattern paper a lot. It's not for everyone. Other people like to make all their own backgrounds and ink up stuff. But I found that trying to keep up with all of the trends and new techniques and new ways of doing things actually made it harder for me to craft, because I felt like I had to like spend a bunch of time learning to do a new thing. You know, I think that like when I first learned about ink blending, I thought it was really, really cool. But I don't do it all that often in reality. And I do like having products that make it easier, like Distress Oxides blend a little bit smoother and easier, for instance, than even traditional distress inks or just your standard ink. So it's nice to have a good product that like does whatever the technique is well. Because if you're fighting with the paper, like, you know, if you're trying to do alcohol ink, but you're not using an alcohol ink friendly paper, well, yeah, that's going to be really frustrating. But I just try not to get sucked into too many of the like newest way of doing things. Even like I keep it pretty limited on how often I make shaker cards too, because they're more fussy, and there's always like a new way to do it. Like, oh, now there's like pouches or then the little shaped things. And again, none of that is bad. It's just for me, I find it difficult to keep up with that kind of thing and stay crafting regularly. Another thing I've tried to start doing regularly is destashing my craft room. So looking at some stamp sets that I haven't used in a while, kind of thinking, okay, which one of these maybe would be better to pass on? Which one have I used a lot and might continue to use? Because I do think sometimes there's some like, I've used that one a lot and I want to destash it because I felt like I've got good use out of it and it's not as interesting to me anymore. And I want to keep one that I've never used because I really do want to get to it. But just starting to kind of make those decisions more regularly, so that I don't have to feel overwhelmed or guilty when I want to buy a new stamp or a new paper pad or whatever. Paper pads are a little bit easier for me though, because I can use them up. So I can use an entire paper pad and then I don't have to destash in terms of getting rid of it and giving it to someone else or something like that. I can instead destash by just using it up. And so I think that I'm not destashing any of these right now. I did pick some from Hello Bluebird recently that I do need to let go of, but aren't their stamps just adorable? But yeah, just like trying to regularly go through and say, hey, you know, I think that this has outlived its useful time in my craft room. It's not something that I'm reaching for, and I don't want to make myself feel bad about that. I want to be able to go, you know what, that was a mistake. I'm going to learn from it. Hey, I know now I don't use that kind of product, die, stamp, whatever, and move on, learn the lesson, and stop punishing myself. This next habit I talked about extensively. I realized in the last few years that this type of storage that works best for me is flip-through storage. Something where I'm like, okay, I know I want a Lawn Fawn stamp for Christmas. I can easily go into my stash, find my group of Lawn Fawn Christmas stamps. Or Lawn Fawn is what I have a lot of. This is a bin of just the smaller Lawn Fawn stamp sets. And as you can see, it is not very easy to flip through right now, which probably means that this is going to be kind of next on my target of what do I need to destash, as I previously mentioned. But being able to flip through and easily see each and every stamp in my collection, super helpful to me. I do the same thing with my dies. They're sorted by category instead of company, but they're flip throughable. Like I can, you know, just kind of easily go through and find and see in each one. I do the same thing with my pattern paper, and I use binders as flip through storage too, because like all of those templates I talked about, they're labeled. I can flip through, pick which one looks best to me. I'm trying to make all of my stuff very accessible that way. And so I had a flip through storage guide that was part of the Paper Crafters Get Organized Summit, and I can share that with you. I'll put the link in the video description, so if you hadn't seen that presentation or you hadn't seen the summit, it kind of shows you how you might go through flip through storage a little bit. But yeah, I think that having a storage method that allows you to put your hands on something quickly in your craft room, whether that's having it out on display or something like flip-through storage, very, very important. something that I've been doing for many, many years and I think has really been helpful throughout all of them is donating my cards, because I want to enjoy the process of crafting. I want to use the products that are inspiring to me, and it is great to give your family and friends cards. I highly encourage you all to do that. I'm not saying I don't make birthday cards for people, but if I see an Easter paper pad and I get really inspired by it and I make 40 cards, I don't know 40 people to give those cards to, but I can donate the rest of them that I've made. And that's very freeing for me, that I can just make cards in whatever style or etc. that appeals to me, and then I can go find an organization that will benefit from them. So at jesscrafts.com, there is like how to donate your cards, where to donate your cards, and it will give you many, many different organizations so that you can find one that's suited to the kind of card you want to make. I will say a lot of them, I'll get to that part of it, but a lot of them like don't accept like new baby cards, for instance, because there's not really a lot of need for that, or, you know, congratulations on your wedding kind of thing. But they accept a lot of holiday cards and general cards, and you can generally kind of make what's inspiring to you. Then when I do want to donate my cards, I have made printable jokes, and you can get all of these at jesscrafts.com. These are also free downloads, and you print them off and you can put them inside your cards, so you don't have to think about what to write each time, and then you sign your name and your location usually. You know, just first names, and like sometimes you can even put the town. It depends. Look into each organization. Some organizations don't even require you to fill out the card. They actually want blank cards. So if that's more up your alley, but I did want to let you know that that is something that I have. I have many, many jokes. Like I think there's 40 different files out there. And again, I have a whole flip through storage for all the jokes, so that, you know, if I make elephants themed cards, like I put a bunch of elephants on cards, I have jokes specifically for that. It gets very granular. I did dinosaurs because those are super common for me to use. I like to use a lot of critters, so it is pretty critter heavy. I do have holiday jokes, of course. I have some Spanish jokes, which can be pretty cool because a lot of organizations do want like cards in other languages, but like if you don't speak it, you might feel intimidated to make the cards, but you can buy stamps or dies. And then these jokes have all been proofread by a Spanish speaker, so they're all good to go. You don't have to speak Spanish to make those cards. But yeah, so donating the cards really was freeing for me. This next one's probably gonna sound counterintuitive, and it goes against a lot of advice that I hear. But I don't clean up till I'm finished with a project. And what I hear a lot is clean up at the end of your craft session. And so if I only have 30 minutes to craft, but I'm still making a batch of cards, I picked a template that makes 4 cards, I've only completed 1 of them, I am not going to put all of my supplies away. If I did that, then the next time I came back to my craft room, it would look beautiful and clean, and I'd have to go get all that stuff back out, and that feels like work to me. That is not something I want to be doing. I leave everything out until a project is done. And then I usually clean it, and sometimes I shove it off to the side and work on the next project. We all have done it. But I think that the advice to clean up at the end of a session doesn't work for me, and I bet it doesn't work for a lot of other people. So again, I guess that's maybe more of an anti-habit, but the habit is clean up after I'm done with a project instead of clean up at the end of a session. So I hope that, and obviously I've made it like a fake mess here for you guys because I'm not in the middle of a project, because I clean up after a project, and this video is kind of a different kind of project. But I hope all of these thoughts could be helpful to you, and you can pick and choose which ones make sense to you and try to implement them. If you have another habit or like thing that you do regularly that helps you to feel more efficient, free, whatever, happy in the craft room, because that is what it's about. It is not about how many cards you make. It is not about what products you use on the cards. It is not like, you know, foiling is not better than stickers. It is about happiness. So again, hopefully some of this has brought you some ideas of how to bring some more happiness to it. I'd love to hear your ideas. If you found this video helpful, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template or tutorial. And check the video description for product links, although there might not be very many for this particular one. See you in the next video. Bye.